The ruins still smoked from yesterday's battle. Sergeant Oliver Grant kicked aside a broken piece of armor as he walked through what used to be a Dracari supply station. His boots crunched on shattered glass and scorched metal. The dragon warriors had retreated hours ago, leaving behind their dead and their trash. Oliver's job was to make sure they hadn't left behind any surprises. He hated this planet. Draka Prime was nothing but red dust and black rocks. Worthless piece of dirt that both sides wanted because the other side wanted it. 3 years he'd been fighting here. 3 years since his little brother died in the first wave. 3 years of watching dragons burn his friends alive. A sound stopped him mid-step, high-pitched and weak like a kitten crying. Oliver raised his rifle and moved toward the noise. It came from a collapsed building, from somewhere deep in the rubble, probably some local animal. This planet had rat-sized things that bit hard enough to take off fingers. The crying got louder as he climbed over broken beams. His helmet scanner showed no heat signatures, no movement, nothing dangerous, but the sound pulled at something in his chest. It reminded him of his brother, the way he'd cried after falling off his bike, small and hurt and scared. Oliver found the source behind a fallen wall. His breath caught. A dragon hatchling, barely bigger than a house cat, lay curled in a shallow crater. Its scales were bright copper, catching the dim light like polished metal. One bent at a wrong angle. Blood matted the scales along its side. Those huge golden eyes locked onto Oliver, and the creature made that heartbreaking sound again. Every bit of training screamed at Oliver to kill it. Dragons grew up to be monsters. This thing would someday burn humans without a second thought. Command had standing orders. No enemy survivors, especially not their young. The Dracari showed no mercy. Why should humans? The hatchling tried to crawl backward, but its broken wing made it stumble. It fell onto its side and cried harder. Those golden eyes never left Oliver's face, not with hate or defiance, with pure terror. Oliver lowered his rifle. He'd killed adult dragons in combat. He'd watched them die and felt nothing but grim satisfaction. But this wasn't a warrior. This was something's baby, left behind and dying alone in the dark. He knelt down slowly. The hatchling's crying turned to rapid chirps, almost like hiccups. Its small body trembled. Oliver pulled off his glove and reached out carefully. The moment his skin touched the hatchling scales, the world shifted. Warmth flooded through him, not physical heat, but something deeper. He felt the hatchling's fear like it was his own, felt its pain sharp and bright in that broken wing, felt its desperate loneliness, the crushing weight of being abandoned. Images flashed through his mind that weren't his memories. A huge dragon standing over the hatchling, eyes cold and disgusted, the ground rushing up as something threw the small creature away. Darkness and pain and the certainty that no one would come. Oliver gasped and pulled his hand back. The connection snapped but didn't disappear completely. He could still feel the hatchling there, a small warm presence at the edge of his thoughts. The creature had gone quiet. It watched him with those impossible eyes, no longer crying. Slowly, painfully, it dragged itself forward, closer to Oliver, closer to the first gentle touch it had ever known. Something broke inside Oliver's chest. Maybe it was the last piece of the man he'd been before the war. Maybe it was the first piece of someone new. He didn't know and didn't care. He reached out again and gathered the hatchling into his arms. It weighed almost nothing. The small body pressed against his chest, and he felt its rapid heartbeat through his armor. The hatchling made a sound like a purr, soft and desperate. Through that strange connection, Oliver felt its shock, felt it discovering that touch could mean safety instead of pain. "You're okay," Oliver whispered, knowing it couldn't understand words. "I've got you." The hatchling's breathing slowed. It tucked its small head under Oliver's chin and went completely still, trusting with the blind faith that only the very young possessed through their bond. Oliver felt the exact moment it fell asleep, felt its dreams confused and fragmented, but no longer nightmares. He should kill it. Command would order it. His squad would demand it. Every practical, logical part of his brain said the same thing. But Oliver looked down at the sleeping hatchling and saw his brother, saw every scared kid who'd ever needed someone to be there, saw chance to save something instead of destroying it. His communicator crackled. "Grant. Report status." Oliver stood carefully, cradling the hatchling. "Sector clear, heading back to base." "Any contacts?" Oliver looked at the small copper creature sleeping against his chest. At the enemy he should kill, at the helpless baby he couldn't abandon. "Negative, all quiet." He tucked the hatchling inside his jacket, feeling its warmth through his shirt. Through their link he caught flashes of emotion, gratitude, relief, something that felt almost like hope. Oliver started the long walk back to base, each step taking him further from the soldier he'd been. He didn't have a plan, didn't know how to hide a dragon, or what would happen when it grew. All he knew was that something had crawled into his arms and changed everything. The hatchling stirred once, making a small questioning sound. Oliver pressed his hand against his jacket, feeling the small shape underneath. "I'll call you Copper," he said softly, "and somehow we'll figure this out." Oliver's quarters were barely big enough for a bed and a locker, which made them perfect. Nobody visited, nobody checked, and the walls were thick enough to muffle sound. He set Copper down on his bunk and pulled out his medical kit. The hatchling watched every movement with those sharp golden eyes. Through their connection, Oliver felt curiosity mixed with lingering fear. Copper didn't resist when Oliver examined the broken wing, though small whimpers escaped when Oliver touched the damaged area. "I know it hurts," Oliver muttered, pulling out a splint meant for human fingers, "but we need to set this or it won't heal right." He worked as gently as possible, feeling Copper's pain echo through their bond. The hatchling never tried to bite or scratch, it just watched Oliver's face, somehow understanding that the hurt came with help. When Oliver finished wrapping the wing, Copper made that purring sound again and pressed against his hand. Over the next week, Oliver fell into a routine built on lies and stolen supplies. He smuggled food from the mess hall, claiming extra rations for long patrols. Medical supplies disappeared from unlocked cabinets. He volunteered for every solo assignment, anything to spend less time where people might notice his distraction. Because Copper was always there, a warm presence in his mind. During briefings, Oliver felt the hatchling's boredom. During weapons drills, he felt Copper's fascination with the loud noises. At night, he felt the small creature's contentment as it slept curled against his side. The hatchling grew fast, too fast. Within days, Copper reached the size of a large cat, the splinted wing healed. With disturbing speed, more concerning, were the changes in Oliver himself. His reflexes had sharpened, a cut on his hand that should have taken days to heal closed overnight during morning runs. He left younger soldiers gasping behind him. Captain Reed noticed. Grant, you're performing above baseline. Medical check required. Oliver's stomach dropped. Sir, I feel fine, better than fine. That's the problem. Reed's eyes narrowed. You're healing too fast. Running too far. Something's wrong and I need to know what. That night, Oliver sat on his bunk with Copper in his lap. The hatchling was big enough now that its tail hung over knees. It watched him with intelligent eyes, head tilted as if asking a question. They're going to find out, Oliver said through the bond. Copper understood his distress, if not his words. The hatchling made a concerned chirp and pressed its snout against Oliver's chest. Images flooded through their connection. Not Oliver's memories, but Copper's. He saw through the hatchling's eyes, watching a massive dragon with crimson scales. Saw that dragon examine a group of hatchlings lined up like soldiers. Saw her pause at Copper, eyes filled with disgust. Felt the crushing rejection when she pushed Copper away from the others. More memories came. Copper bonding with a small beetle, feeling joy at the connection. The other hatchlings shrinking away. Adult dragons speaking in sounds Oliver couldn't understand, but their meaning came through the bond. Defective, broken, weak. Any dragon that bonded with lesser creatures couldn't be allowed to live. Oliver's hands tightened around Copper. They threw you away because you could feel things, because you cared. Copper's purr rumbled against his chest. Through the bond, Oliver felt something new, not just the hatchling's emotions, but its thoughts, simple and direct. More feeling than language, but clear. Safe here, safe with you. Yeah, Oliver whispered, you're safe with me. The next morning, Captain Reed pulled Oliver into her office. Dr. Singh waited there, the base xenobiologist, her dark eyes sharp with curiosity. Strip to your waist, Reed ordered. Dr. Singh needs blood samples and a full scan. Oliver had no choice. He removed his shirt while Singh prepared her instruments. As she drew blood, her scanner beeped. She frowned and adjusted settings. The beeping got faster. Captain, his cellular structure is abnormal. Enhanced regeneration. Increased muscle density. His neural patterns show activity I've never seen in baseline humans. Singh looked up. Grant, what have you been exposed to? The door burst open. Private Chen, one of Oliver's squadmates, stood there pale and shaking. Sir, there's something in Grant's quarters, something alive. Reed's hand dropped to her sidearm. Show me. They marched through the corridors, Chen leading, Reed and Singh following. Oliver's heart pounding with each step. Chen stopped at Oliver's door. I heard sounds, went to check on Grant and heard something moving inside. Reed punched in her override code. Door slid open. Copper sat on Oliver's bunk, wings partially spread in a defensive posture. The hatchling had grown to the size of a medium dog. Copper's golden eyes fixed on the strangers, and a low growl rumbled from its throat. But when those eyes found Oliver, the growl stopped. The hatchling's entire posture changed from threat to desperate hope. Stand down. Reed's pistol came up, aimed at Copper's head. No, Oliver threw himself between them. Through the bond he felt Copper's. Terror felt the hatchling ready to fight, not to save itself but to protect Oliver. Don't shoot. You're harboring an enemy combatant. Reed's voice shook with fury. A dragon. A baby, Oliver shouted back. Look at it. It's just a baby. Singh pushed past them both, her scanner out. She approached Copper slowly. The hatchling pressed against the wall, chirping in distress, but it didn't attack, didn't breathe fire, just watched Singh with terrified eyes. Remarkable, Singh whispered. Captain, I'm reading a quantum entanglement between Grant and the hatchling. Genuine psychic bond. This isn't infection or contamination, it's symbiosis. Reed's gun didn't lower. I don't care what it is, Command will want it destroyed or studied. Either way, Grant, you're finished. Copper made a sound Oliver had never heard before, a keening wail of pure despair. The hatchling launched itself across the room, not at Reed but at Oliver. Copper crashed into his chest, nearly knocking him down, and wrapped around him like a child clinging to a parent. Through the bond, Oliver felt everything. Copper's absolute certainty that these humans would tear them apart. The hatchling's willingness to die, protecting the only creature who'd ever shown it kindness, and underneath it all, a simple truth that broke Oliver's heart. Safe with you, only safe with you. Oliver wrapped his arms around Copper and met Reed's eyes. You'll have to shoot us both. The holding cell felt too small with 4 people and a dragon inside. Oliver sat on the metal bench, Copper pressed against his legs, while Reed paced and Singh typed notes on her tablet. Chen stood guard at the door, looking uncomfortable. Command wants both of you terminated, Reed said flatly. The hatchling as an enemy asset, you as a compromised security risk. Oliver's hand rested on Copper's head. The hatchling trembled but stayed quiet. So, why haven't you done it? Because Dr. Singh made an interesting argument. Reed stopped packing. Singh, explain. The xenobiologist looked up from her tablet. The bond is real and measurable. Grant's enhanced abilities come directly from his connection to the hatchling. Increased strength, faster healing, heightened reflexes. But here's what's fascinating. The transfer goes both ways. She pulled up a holographic display. I scanned the hatchling. Its fear response decreases when Grant touches it. Its problem-solving abilities are off the charts for its age. It's learning at an accelerated rate because it's drawing on Grant's intelligence and experience. So what? Reed crossed her arms. The smart dragon is more dangerous, not less. Is it? Singh gestured at Copper. Captain, this hatchling had multiple opportunities to attack. It didn't. When you aimed your weapon, its first instinct was to shield Grant, not defend itself. That's not typical dragon behavior. That's something else entirely. Reed looked at Copper for a long moment. You're saying the bond changed it? I'm saying the bond changed both of them. Singh's eyes gleamed with scientific excitement. Dragons are bred for aggression and dominance. Empathy is systematically eliminated from their species, but this one bonded before that conditioning could take hold. It's learning human values, human emotions. And Grant, Reed asked, is learning dragon abilities. Physical enhancement is just the start. Give them time and Grant might develop additional capabilities we can't predict. Singh closed her display. Captain, what if this isn't a liability? What if it's the breakthrough we've been waiting for? Reed turned to Oliver. Command is sending someone to evaluate the situation. Colonel Hayes, he arrives tomorrow. If you can prove this bond is an asset and not a threat, you might live. If not, she didn't finish the sentence. That night, Oliver couldn't sleep. Copper sensed his anxiety and nuzzled against him, making worried sounds. Through the bond, Oliver felt the hatchling's confusion. Copper didn't understand why the other humans were angry, didn't understand why safety had turned to danger. I'm sorry, Oliver whispered. I should have found a better way. Images flashed through the bond. Copper's memories of abandonment, of dying alone in the dark, then the memory of Oliver's touch, the first kindness the hatchling had ever known. Through the connection, Oliver felt Copper's simple logic. Alone meant death. Together meant life. Nothing else mattered. The light snapped on. Alarms screamed. Through the base, Reed's voice crackled. Over the intercom, all personnel to battle stations, Draken strike team incoming. Oliver grabbed his rifle and ran for the door. Copper bounded after him, no longer small enough to hide. Other soldiers scattered as they saw the hatchling, but there was no time for questions. The base shook from impacts. Outside, 3 Draken warriors descended from the smoke-filled sky. Adult dragons, each one massive and terrible. Their scales gleamed like polished obsidian. Fire dripped from their jaws. Oliver had fought their kind before. Always from a distance, always with heavy weapons. One dragon landed in the courtyard, crushing equipment under its claws. Its eyes scanned the scrambling humans with predatory intelligence. Then those eyes locked onto Copper. The adult dragon roared, a sound that shook Oliver's bones. Through his bond with Copper, Oliver felt a flash of recognition, not from seeing this dragon before, but from scent, from some instinctive knowledge. This was Copper's mother, High Commandress Sareth. Sareth's thoughts blasted through the strange connection, not meant for Oliver but impossible to block. Disgust raged, the knowledge that her defective offspring still lived, still polluted the world with its weakness. She had come to finish what she'd started. Copper stepped in front of Oliver, wings spread despite being barely a quarter of Sareth's size. The hatchling's stance was all wrong for a dragon, protective rather than dominant. Sareth's lip curled in contempt. Move, Oliver tried to pull Copper back, but the hatchling wouldn't budge. Sareth inhaled, chest glowing orange with building fire. The other dragons moved to flank her. Soldiers opened fire, but their bullets bounced off armored scales. This wasn't a battle, it was an execution. Oliver felt Copper's determination through the bond. The hatchling knew it would die, knew it couldn't win, but it would die protecting Oliver, because that was what you did for family. Something snapped inside Oliver's mind. The bond, previously a gentle connection, exploded into something more. He felt Copper's strength flood into him, felt the hatchling's senses overlay his own. His vision sharpened. His muscles burned with new power. Without thinking, Oliver raised his hand. Energy crackled around his fingers, borrowed from Copper, channeled through their connection. He slammed his palm against the ground. A shockwave burst outward, invisible but devastating. It caught Sareth mid-breath and sent her staggering backward. Other dragons shrieked in confusion. Soldiers stared in shock. Oliver looked at his hand, barely believing what he'd done. Through the bond, he felt Copper's surprise mirror his own. Neither of them had known that was possible. Sarath recovered quickly, eyes narrowing. She spoke in the dragon language, sounds like grinding rocks. But through Copper, Oliver understood every word. You've bonded with prey, you've become an abomination. I will burn you both and cleanse this shame. Colonel Hayes' ship chose that moment to descend from orbit, its weapons hot and ready. Heavy cannons swiveled toward the dragons. Sarath assessed the new threat, calculated odds, and snarled in frustration. She launched skyward, her companions following. But before she disappeared into the clouds, her thoughts launched through the bond one more time. This isn't over. I will find you. I will end you both. Oliver collapsed to his knees, exhausted. Copper pressed against him, purring with relief. Around them, soldiers slowly lowered their weapons, staring at the sergeant and the dragon, who just saved the base. Colonel Hayes emerged from his ship and surveyed the scene. His eyes moved from Oliver to Copper to the scorch marks in the courtyard. Well, he said dryly, this should be an interesting evaluation. Colonel Hayes interviewed Oliver for 3 hours straight in the debriefing room. Copper lay in the corner, head on paws, watching everything with those intelligent eyes. The hatchling had grown again, now the size of a large dog. Copper barely fit through standard doorways. Explain the energy discharge, Hayes said, rewatching footage of the fight. Where did that power come from? Oliver shook his head. I don't know. I felt Copper's strength, and suddenly I could do things I shouldn't be able to do. It felt natural, like breathing. Dr. Singh has a theory. Hayes pulled up a holographic display. She believes the bond creates a feedback loop. The dragon provides raw power, you provide conscious direction. Together you can channel abilities neither species possesses alone. Sir, what happens to us now? Hayes studied him for a long moment. That depends. Command is split. Half want you weaponized, the other half want you eliminated as too dangerous. I'm here to make the final call. And I'm sending you on a mission. Hayes changed the display to show star charts. Intelligence intercepted Draken. Communications. There's a facility in the outer rim, heavily guarded. We don't know what they're protecting, but the security suggests it's valuable. Oliver frowned. You want us to infiltrate it? I want you to prove you're an asset, not a liability. Take a small team. Use your connection to Copper to navigate Draken security. Bring me something useful, and I'll convince Command to let you live. And if we fail? Hayes closed the display. Then this conversation never happened, and I was too late to save you from that Draken attack. 2 days later, Oliver and 5 hand-picked soldiers approached the facility in a stolen Draken transport. Copper crouched in the cargo bay, barely contained by the cramped space. Through the bond, Oliver felt the hatchlings' discomfort and tried to project calm. Private Chen checked her scanner. 2 guard posts, automated defenses, and at least 6 adult dragons on patrol. This is suicide. That's why we have our secret weapon. Corporal Davis nodded at Copper. Can it really sense other dragons? As if answering, Copper's head snapped. Up through the bond, Oliver felt the hatchling detecting nearby dragons, not just their location, but their emotion. State board guards unfocused and Complacent. 3 dragons ahead not paying. Attention, Oliver reported. Copper says we can slip past if we are quiet. They landed outside the facilities. Sensor range, Copper led them through a route that seemed random but avoided every patrol with uncanny precision. The hatchling could sense dragons from hundreds of meters away, feel their attention wax and wane. Inside the facility they found something unexpected, rows of cells, each containing a dragon hatchling. Dozens of them, all small and terrified. Guards moved between the cells, checking data pads marking certain hatchlings with glowing tags. Oliver hid behind a support beam and watched a dragon scientist examine a hatchling that had managed to bond with a small rodent that had gotten into its cell. The scientist made notes, then marked the hatchling with a red tag. Guards immediately removed that hatchling, dragging it toward a heavy door marked with warning symbols. Through Copper, Oliver understood. Red tags meant termination. These hatchlings were being tested for empathy, for the ability to bond. Any that showed the trait were killed. These are children, Chen whispered. Horrified, they're executing children for being kind. Copper made a distressed sound. Through the bond, Oliver felt the hatchlings' anguish. These were Copper's kind. Babies just like Copper had been condemned for the same crime, the same capacity for connection that had saved Copper's life now meant death for dozens of others. We can't leave them, Oliver said. Davis grabbed his arm. The mission is intelligence gathering, not rescue. We take these hatchlings and every dragon in the sector comes down on us. So we'll fight. Oliver met his eyes. I won't abandon them. The team exchanged glances. Finally, Chen nodded. All right, we're already dead. If we fail anyway, might as well die doing something right. They moved fast. Chen hacked the security system while Davis planted charges. Oliver and Copper went cell to cell, opening doors. The hatchlings cowered at first, terrified of everything, but when Copper approached them making soft sounds, they responded. Through the bond, Oliver felt Copper communicating, not with words but with emotions, safety, hope, the promise that someone cared. One by one the hatchlings emerged from their cells. The alarms triggered when they were halfway out. Adult dragons swarmed from every direction, roaring in fury. Oliver's team formed a defensive circle around the freed hatchlings. Copper stood at the front, wings spread, growling defiance at dragons 5 times larger. One of the guards, a scarred dragon with midnight scales, landed hard in front of them. Through Copper, Oliver caught the guard's thoughts, confusion. These humans were defending hatchlings. That made no sense. Nothing in dragon culture prepared them for this. We are leaving with these children, Oliver shouted. Stand down or we'll make you. The guard tilted its head, studying them. More dragons landed, forming a half circle. The freed hatchlings huddled together, terrified. Through Copper, Oliver felt their fears spike. They'd never known kindness, only cruelty. They expected death. Then something unexpected happened. One of the freed hatchlings, braver than the rest, stepped toward a human soldier. The soldier, a young woman named Liu, knelt down slowly. The hatchling touched her hand. The bond formed instantly. Liu gasped, feeling the connection snap into place. The hatchling made a wondering sound. Other hatchlings noticed, slowly Tentatively, they approached other soldiers. More bonds formed, quick and desperate. The guard dragons watched in stunned silence. This wasn't just unprecedented. It was impossible. Hatchlings bonding with humans, humans accepting the bonds. Both species choosing connection over conflict. The scarred guard stepped back. Through copper, Oliver felt the dragons' thoughts crumbling. Everything it had been taught said this couldn't happen. But it was happening right in front of them. The guard spoke in grinding dragon speech. Through copper, Oliver understood. Take them before someone comes who won't hesitate. They ran for the transport, newly bonded pairs moving in strange synchronization. Behind them, the facility exploded as Davis's charges detonated. Alarms screamed across Draken channels, but they were already gone, jumping to hyperspace with 23 hatchlings and a truth that would shake both civilizations. Empathy wasn't weakness, it was power. And nothing in the galaxy could stop an idea whose time had come. News of the rescue spread through both human and Draken space like wildfire. The humans couldn't believe their soldiers had saved enemy young. The Draken couldn't believe their hatchlings had bonded with prey. Within a week, High Command issued orders: destroy the bonded pairs before the infection spread. High Commander Sarath volunteered to lead the hunt. Through copper, Oliver felt her obsession burning like acid. She'd lost one defective offspring. Now that offspring had corrupted dozens more. The shame consumed her. She would erase it with fire and blood. Oliver stood in the newly established sanctuary, watching the bonded pairs train together. Liu and her hatchling Storm practiced synchronized movements. Chin's partner Flicker had already learned to sense danger before it arrived. Each bond manifested differently, unique combinations of human and dragon traits. Colonel Hayes approached, his expression grim. Draken fleet inbound. Sarath is bringing everything she has. We need to evacuate. Where? Oliver gestured at the hatchlings. They're tracking us through the dragons. We run, they follow. We hide, they find us. So what do you suggest? Oliver looked at Copper, who'd grown to the size of a small horse. Through the bond, he felt the dragons' determination. We stop running, we face. Sorry. That's suicide. Sarath has 30 warships and hundreds of warriors. She also has a weakness. Oliver met Hayes' eyes. She can't understand what we have. The bonds confuse her, terrify her. Every time she sees a human and dragon working together, it challenges everything she believes. You want to use that against her. I want to show her she's wrong, not with words, with proof. Hayes considered this. If you're proposing what I think you're proposing, you'll need bait, something to draw her in. Oliver nodded slowly. Me and Copper, she wants us dead more than anyone. We make ourselves visible, she'll come. And then we trust the bonds. 3 days later, Oliver stood on an abandoned mining platform with Copper at his side. The dragon had grown massive, copper scales gleaming in the systems. Twin suns. Through their bond, Oliver felt Copper's nervousness, but also absolute trust. Whatever happened, they'd face it together. Sarath's flagship emerged from hyperspace like a blade cutting reality. Smaller ships swarmed around it, blotting out the stars. The High Commander's voice boomed across all channels, magnified and terrible. Surrender the abominations and the rest Of you may live. Oliver activated his communicator. Come. Take us if you can. Sareth roared, a sound that rattled the platform structure. Her ship opened fire, but Oliver and Copper moved as one through the bond they shared. Reflexes, Oliver dodged left as Copper sensed the blast. Copper dove right as Oliver predicted the second shot. Neither could have survived alone. Together, they made impossible survival. Look easy. Dragon warriors descended from the ships, dozens of them, all focused on Copper. They saw the betrayal, the contamination, the shame. They saw something that needed to be destroyed. But they didn't see the other bonded pairs arriving from all directions. Liu and Storm hit from above. Chen and Flicker struck from below. Mari pairs emerged from hiding. Human-dragon teams moving with inhuman coordination. The Drakari warriors faltered. This wasn't battle as they knew it. These weren't enemies. These were their own. Young fighting alongside prey. Protecting each other, moving with unity. That shouldn't exist. One warrior broke formation, unable to process what she saw. Another hesitated, watching a human shield a hatchling with her own body. Doubt crept through the ranks like poison. Everything they'd been taught said this was impossible. But it was happening. Sareth felt her soldiers wavering and screamed orders. Fire erupted from dragon jaws, but the bonded pairs scattered and regrouped with fluid grace. Human weapons found gaps in dragon armor, guided by dragon senses. Dragon strength protected fragile human bodies. Then Sareth made her mistake. Consumed by rage, she focused entirely on Copper. She dove from her flagship, a crimson meteor of fury and hate. Her claws extended to tear her defective offspring apart. Oliver felt Copper's fear, but also something else, pity, through the bond. Copper understood what Oliver had helped him learn. Sareth wasn't strong because she felt nothing. She was weak because she couldn't feel anything. Her power came from rage and hate, emotions that burned hot but left only ashes. Copper's strength came from love, from the bond, from choosing connection over dominance. Sareth's claws struck Copper's scales and skidded off. The power of the bond, channeled through Oliver's will, had made the hatchling's defenses impenetrable. Sareth struck again and again, each blow weaker than the last. You were supposed to be great, Oliver said, and through Copper, Sareth heard him. You had a child who could have taught you something beautiful, but you threw him away because you were afraid. Sareth reared back, gathering fire her throat, but before she could release it, something stopped her. Every bonded pair on the platform focused together. Human willpower and dragon strength merged into a single force. The psychic pressure hit Sareth like a physical blow. She staggered, fire dying in her throat. Through the connection, she felt what they felt: love, trust, partnership, the absolute certainty that together they were stronger than apart. It broke something in her mind. Sareth had built her entire existence on the belief that empathy meant weakness, that bonds made you vulnerable, that caring for lesser beings degraded you. But these creatures, bonded and unashamed, were defeating her best warriors. These prey and defective offspring had power she couldn't match, because they had something she'd never possessed: each other. Sareth fled. Her flagship jumped to hyperspace. The remaining warriors, seeing their commander retreat, followed. The battle ended not with explosions but with silence. Oliver knelt beside Copper, exhausted. The dragon nuzzled against him, purring. Around them, bonded pairs embraced. Human and dragon celebrating survival. Together. Did we win? Liu asked. Oliver watched the empty space where Sarath's fleet had been. We proved. Something more important, we proved it's possible. Maury's ships arrived, but these weren't Dracari, human vessels responding to Hayes' call, but among them came something unexpected, a single Dracari. Transport broadcasting surrender codes. It landed near the platform, the hatch. Open, 3 Dracari warriors emerged. And behind them, a dozen more. Hatchlings, the warriors knelt. Gesture of submission. Through copper, Oliver understood their thoughts. They'd seen the battle scene. What the bonds could do, and they'd made a choice. We bring those your kind call defective. The lead warrior said in halting human speech. We ask sanctuary, we ask to learn this thing you have. Oliver looked at the hatchlings, already moving toward the human soldiers with hope in their eyes. Maury bonds waiting to form. Maury proof that empathy wasn't the end of their species, but the beginning of something better. Welcome, he said simply. 6 months after the battle, Oliver stood in the sanctuary's main courtyard and watched the morning training session. 50 bonded pairs moved through synchronized drills, human and dragon, flowing together like water. Copper now fully grown with wings that spanned 15 m, supervised from a raised platform. Through the bond, Oliver felt his partner's satisfaction. Copper had become something unprecedented. Teacher. The adult dragon helped newly bonded hatchlings understand their connection, showed them how to share strength without losing themselves. Remarkable progress, Dr. Singh said, appearing beside Oliver with her ever-present tablet. The bonds are stabilizing faster than predicted. We're seeing third-generation benefits now. The humans are developing limited telepathy. The dragons are learning abstract reasoning. And the Dracari response. Singh's expression darkened, mixed. Sarath's faction wants total war, but there's another faction led by someone called Commander Rothak. He's arguing for peace. Dogs. Oliver had heard that name through Copper's connection to the other dragons. Rothak had been one of Sarath's commanders, but he'd witnessed the battle, seen what the bonds could do. Unlike Sarath, he'd ask questions instead of doubling down on hate. A commotion at the sanctuary gates drew Oliver's attention. Colonel Hayes hurried toward him, face grim. We have a situation. A Dracari ship just jumped into the system. Single vessel, no weapons hot. They're requesting permission to land. Sarath. Oliver's hand went to his sidearm. No, the ship identifies as belonging to Commander Rothak. He claims he comes to negotiate. 20 minutes later, Oliver stood in the landing bay as the Dracari ship touched down. Copper stood beside him, wings partially spread in a defensive posture. Around them, bonded pairs formed a protective semicircle. The ship's hatch opened. Commander Rothak emerged, a massive dragon with scales like polished steel. But he didn't approach in the traditional Dracari battle stance. Instead, he kept his wings folded, head lowered in a gesture of peace. I come unarmed, Rothak said in perfect human speech. I come to learn. Oliver studied him carefully. Through Copper, he felt the dragon's sincerity. No deception, no hidden agenda, just genuine curiosity and something that might have been hope. Learn what? How you did this? Rothak gestured at the Bonded pairs, how you took weakness and made it strength, how you broke every rule we know and won because of it. It's not weakness, Oliver said. It never was. Your species just convinced yourselves it was because empathy threatened your power structure. Rothek's eyes narrowed, but not with anger, with thought. Our empire is fracturing. Maury warriors are questioning orders. Maury hatchlings are being hidden instead of culled. Sarath's rhetoric grows more desperate because fewer believe it. He paused. Some of us wonder if we've been wrong for a very long time. And what does Sarath say about you being here? She has declared me traitor and sworn to destroy me, but half the fleet refuses to follow that order. They want answers, not more war. Rothek looked directly at Copper. They want to know if what you have is real or just human trickery. Copper stepped forward. Oliver felt the dragon's intention through the bond and didn't interfere. This was Copper's moment. The two dragons faced each other, the fully grown Rothek towering over Copper. But Copper showed no fear. Through the bond, Oliver felt his partner's certainty. This was what they'd been preparing for. Copper opened the bond, not just to Oliver but outward, a psychic broadcast of what the connection felt like, the warmth of trust, the strength of partnership, the joy of being accepted completely for what you were, defects and all. Rothek staggered as the emotions hit him. His eyes went wide. In all his years, in all his battles, he'd never felt anything like this. The Drakari, bred for isolation, for individual dominance, the idea that connection could make you stronger when against every instinct. But he couldn't deny what he felt. The truth of it resonated in his chest. How Rothek's voice cracked. How do we learn this? You start, Oliver said, by admitting you were wrong, by accepting that the hatchlings you've been killing were never defective. They were evolved. They were the future you were too afraid to embrace. Rothek was silent for a long moment. Then slowly, the massive dragon lowered himself to the ground, a full prostration, the ultimate gesture of submission in Drakari culture. Teach us, he said, please. Over the following weeks, more Drakari ships arrived, not for battle but for understanding. Warriors who'd grown tired of meaningless war, scientists who wanted to study the bonds, even a few brave hatchlings who'd escaped culling and sought sanctuary. Not all of them could form bonds. Ability was rare, limited to those with the specific empathy markers, but those who could change everything. Each new bonded pair was living proof that the old ways were failing. Sarath's response was predictable. She launched attack after attack, but each time more of her own soldiers defected. Her fleet shrank, her power crumbled. The empire that had ruled through fear discovered that fear only worked until someone showed you a better way. 1 year after Oliver found Copper in the ruins, he stood on a platform overlooking the sanctuary's expanded grounds. Hundreds of bonded pairs lived here now, human and dragon, building something new together. Copper landed beside him, massive and magnificent. Through the bond, Oliver felt contentment, but also anticipation. This wasn't the end of anything. It was a beginning. Think they'll ever truly accept us? Oliver asked. Copper's response came as thoughts, rather than sounds, clear and certain. Through their connection. Some will, some won't, but we showed them that's enough. Oliver leaned against his partners, sighed, feeling the warmth of dragon scales, the steady rhythm of breathing. He thought about that day in the ruins, about finding a crying hatchling in, making a choice that changed everything. Yeah, he said softly, that's enough. In the distance, another ship descended. Maury refugees seeking hope, Maury proved. That empathy wasn't weakness, but the strongest force in the galaxy. And somewhere out there, Sereth still plotted revenge, but her power faded a little more each day, eroded by the simple truth that Oliver and Copper represented. Love was stronger than hate, connection was stronger than isolation. And sometimes the greatest courage was choosing compassion when everyone told you to choose conquest. The crying dragon baby who'd crawled into a soldier's arms had changed more than one man's fate. He'd changed the fate of two species. And that was just the beginning.